Alright, when it comes to useful phrases for comparing and contrasting, we have how many videos for compare and contrast? Like 6 or 7 videos already. So we've done a great job with compare and contrast. I just go through them, so please watch the videos for compare and contrast. But I would just spend a couple of minutes putting them on the board, like real quick. The ones that we have here. Like similar to, like in common, as you look at them, either or, this is something I would just, either or, the other one would be, what? How would you read it? Neither nor. As, right? So we also, in the same way, yes? At the same time, what else? And just as and resemble. Bless you. And resemble. Now, this was double bless you. Now, this was for basically comparing. How about like contrast? Again, it goes on, the list goes on. However, tell me, after however, we have on the
contrary.
Yeah, on the contrary. After that, to differ from. Although. Otherwise. And when we talk about although, we should also talk about even though. Yeah, or though. Yeah. Otherwise. Alternatively. But. Where's however? However, but. Yeah. What else? On the other hand. So on the other hand. Yes. Nevertheless. Let me write it this one a little more legible. So we have never the less, or we also have none the less, right? Though instead, and even though. Instead, even though we had it elsewhere, so in spite of, despite the fact that, okay, yeah, we had them in spite of, in spite, or in spite of, or despite. That is in spite of and despite. Okay, fine. So this is what we have here, but since we've done a good number of videos on compare and contrast, I don't want to get into the details right now. I just want to go through this real quick with you guys, and we'll use. So remember, and I shouldn't really be doing this because we have so many videos right now, maybe more than 2-3 hours of videos already on compare and contrast. Just things could be similar to each other, different to each other, from. Thank you. Similar to, different, from. Yeah? That's why we compare things. Some things are similar, some things are different. Oh, my friend and I are exactly the same. Oh, we're so different. We have a lot in common. We don't have anything in common. We have nothing in common. Yes? Let's forget about this for a second. For compare and contrast, in terms of in grammar, we even talked about that. Remember? We had 3 cases. Superlative, the best, the most, the biggest, the highest, and comparative, taller, higher, better, bigger, nicer, than, huh? And as tall as high as nice as good as expensive as rich as, right? So we have also, in the same way, at the same time, they graduated at the same time. He's nice at the same time he's friendly.
What's the difference simultaneously?
Simultaneously is just using one word, one adverb. That's a good one. Let me use it. So we have simultaneous and simultaneously. Right? So simultaneous is adjective, simultaneously is the adverb. Like we have simultaneous translation. Somebody talks and I translate. That was simultaneous translation, right? We graduated simultaneously at the same time. There was another IELTS class going on simultaneously. Same time. So at the same time, there was another IELTS class. It's a phrase. It's an adverbial phrase, but this is a word like a noun or adjective. Adjective or adverb. There were two simultaneous classes. There were two simultaneous IELTS classes taught by two different teachers. I tried both of them and chose one.
So can I use simultaneous with the case that he is friendly at the same time he blah 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 blah. Can I use simultaneously?
No.
No, right?
No.
So it's
That was a
also
good. That was a good example. They're not interchangeable. Not exactly the same. Look, nothing's exactly the same as something else. Just remember that. That's why we should use everything in use with sentences. So, you said she is. What was your sentence example?
You talk about he's friendly.
He's very friendly. At the same time, he is a good friend. He's very. At the same time, he's very generous. But you don't say simultaneously he's generous because at the same time is used in this case. But simultaneously, it's about two events that really happen simultaneously. It's about two events or things that happen simultaneously. You can't say he's jealous simultaneously evil. Yeah. This at the same time is used like at the same breath, at the same time, well, kind of different again. Just, where's T? Where's somebody telling me that a T is missing? Just as he is, he's very nice, just as his younger brother.
As
Just as means just like. Yes, just as. Resemble, we've had this in the videos. And remember, something resembles to, in, on, what's a preposition?
no.
Lisa resembles, I know her sister's name, Miho. Lisa, does she resemble to, in, on her sister?
No. No preposition.
So, no preposition. So I would say Lisa resembles her sister. Or she doesn't resemble her sister. No preposition. I've said it in the videos. Watch the videos. And compare and contrast. So she resembles her sister, she doesn't resemble her sister. To, from, in, on, now. There is a striking what between Lisa and her sister? From resemble, the noun. There's a striking with resemble, resemblance. Again, resemblance, watch the videos. So to resemble, no preposition to resemble someone or something, right? And resemblance, we've had it. However, but. Which one is more formal? But or however? However. So every time you want to write for formally, especially for IELTS, or formally, a letter, formal letter. I tried my best, however, I was not able to convince him. I was not able to is more formal than I couldn't. I was not able to convince him. However means but. However in writing, something that's important about however in writing, you can use it differently. You can use however as a transition. That is, link one sentence and another sentence. So, he went there. However, she was not in the class. She was not there. So this however, you can put however, use small h, however, and comma, comma. Or you can have one sentence here linked by however, semicolon, comma, continue. Or you can have however at the beginning of the sentence. So at the beginning would be capital H, however, comma, the rest. Yeah? So however, we can use it at the beginning of the sentence because you say something, full stop or period, however, you go on. Between, like in the sentence, however, between two sentences. So, differ from, on the contrary, we talked about it. Remember, contrary to something, we've had it. Go back to the videos. Contrary to his brother, John is very quiet. Contrary to his brother, John is very quiet. John is very quiet. On the contrary, his brother is very talkative and whatever. So, on the contrary. Contrary to, he's quite the opposite. We've had these words, quite the opposite. He's just the opposite of his brother. He's quite the opposite. Differ from? Although, even though. Very close. Although I studied hard, I could not pass the test. I didn't pass the test. I didn't pass the test even though I studied hard. Yeah. Again, we've had them. Otherwise, we also have or in less formal cases. Study hard.
Otherwise, you're gonna fail.
Otherwise, you may fail. Otherwise, you're going to fail. You may fail. You will fail if it's a prediction. Or you'll fail. Or you'll fail is more conversational. This or doesn't mean like this or that. Study hard or you'll fail. Get home early or your dad will be mad. Because mom wouldn't say like otherwise your dad will be mad. That's very formal. Or your dad will be mad. So this or is different from that or. Alternatively, it's a good one. I don't think we talked about it in that video. Alternatively. That's why I would like to talk a little bit about this. The ones that we haven't talked about, I would like to talk about them a little bit. Alternatively is one of them. These we talked about. These are gone. Although, even though, otherwise, no. Alternatively, yes. So, what is alternative?
Optional.
What does alternative itself mean? Is close to that one. That is not an adjective. Give me a noun. Alternative. If I say I have no other, tell me. I have no other alternatives. What does that mean?
Have no other choice.
No other
Choice.
options or choices. Options. No other choices. So alternative itself means if I have no other, there were no alternatives. You have no alternatives. There's only one way. I had no other alternative. Somebody would tell you there is always an alternative. We have alternative medicine. Sabrina, what is alternative medicine?
Like natural.
Alternative medicine.
Like naturopath.
It's it's not conventional medicine, right? We have conventional medicine. Well, conventional means what? Conventional medicine is like you go to a doctor and the doctor gives you a prescription and you go get drugs and everything. This is normal procedure, a medical procedure. So normal medicine. Something that is not conventional is not like normal or customary. It's not like the custom thing. It's different. It's not mainstream. Conventional is mainstream, right? Mainstream. Like we have mainstream media. Mainstream media. What is mainstream media? Like in America we have CNN, BBC, well like in England we have BBC, ABC News, CBC. These are like big ones, mainstream. And everyone like goes home and like watches. But then we have alternative media. They are the ones that are against these. Here you would say, hey, we have no other alternatives. There's only CBC and whatever and these things in Canada. If somebody wants to hear the opposite side, and people say, no, there are many, many alternative newspapers and outlets and magazines. We just don't hear about them. You should just go search. In America, we have the alternative media, lots of blogs, lots of websites that actually cover news from a different angle, different perspective. Remember, from my perspective? Perspective is a good word to use in your writing, in your speaking. So from a different perspective. Alternative media would be media that's like that. So alternative medicine would be if you go for homeopathy, for example. We talked about it when we talked about medicine, health, body, and so like when you go to like homeopathy, like when you go for acupuncture and other aromatherapy. Remember aromatherapy? They use massage and all this nice stuff. These are alternative forms of medicine. Now, so you have no alternative. Look, when I came to Townwood, because I had no alternatives. I don't know, I came straight from Japan, and I only spoke Japanese? No. And they said Townwood. Townwood was easy to pronounce. Tam-wood. And so it was easy. So I went to Townwood. And then I learned that it's Tam Good. Who was saying Tam Good? Like a friend was saying Tam Good. It's Townwood, right? Say Townwood.
Talmud.
It's better now. Better.
Talmud.
Yeah. Whenever I want to like talk to Japanese people, like say wood. That's the hardest, right? That's the hardest. Like wood. Wood.
Wood.
Can you say it louder?
Talmud.
Say wood.
Wood.
Amazing.
Gotcha.
You made my day. You just made.
Talmud.
It's amazing. So say window.
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 Window. Talmud.
Better. You're almost getting. So that keep it.
Wood.
Yes.
Wood.
Window.
Window.
You say window very well.
Window.
Now say wood.
Wood.
Yes.
Wood.
It's just wood.
Wood.
Okay. Amazing. So I love it. We'll work on this. We have to work on this, okay? And like I told you, we'll have texts from this week. We'll start reading. So we will tackle the pronunciation issue, I promise you. So, alternatively alternatives. Oh, we also have 5 videos on pronunciation.
Okay.
That's also good to have. Okay. So,
Yes.
So you can come here, or alternatively, you can take CAE. There are two. You can take our IELTS course, or alternatively, you can take CAE. That's the other alternative. So there are two alternatives. Do you have any other alternatives? I have no other alternatives. Yes. Are there any alternatives? Like you ask a question, they say, you can go to this class. You would ask, are there any alternatives? Are there any alternatives? I would say yes. You can also try our CAE course. You can also try that course.
I think is there
Alternatives are there? What or which one?
any what can use it are any I think is
No, yes.
uncountable.
No. Any,
Single.
some, no. Ah, go back to the nouns. Were you here? Maybe you were not here. So look, any, some, no, none.
Every.
No, they're different from every.
Yeah.
These any, some, and no, they can come with either countable or uncountable, depending on your noun.
Yeah.
So are there any students in the class, or is there any sugar? Both. So are there any alternatives? Yes. You can go to hell. Also. So that's the only alternative. Yeah. So yeah, kind of we know alternatively. What is the verb for alternative?
Alternate.
Look, we have the AC and DC. You know AC and DC? AC in what? AD. AC and DC when it comes to electricity? Because DC is direct current. AC is alternating. In physics, also electricity here. This one, the one that goes straight to the wall, that's AC, right? That's alternating. Alternating. So to alternate. To alternate. It's two of us. She takes care of the morning shifts, I take care of the evening shifts. We alternate. The class alternates, the teachers alternate. Every other day, they change. Alternate. To alternate. Now, so alternatively, the question with alternative is, it's good to remember the word alternative as option. Do I have any alternatives? Is there an alternative? Do I have any other alternatives? There are no alternatives. There is no alternative. Alternatively, you can take this course, or alternatively, that course. Remember, alternatively, if you use a word like alternatively in your speech or in writing, that raises the level of your writing
Is it
or your
formal?
speech. Yes. And makes it formal. So I could do this. Oh, I had another choice. I had another choice is not very formal, right? But instead of saying I had another choice, alternatively, I could try another class, namely the CAE class. Or called the CAE class, named the CAE class. But namely is more formal, is a higher level than just named or called. So in your writings, if you want to actually improve your writing, you want to raise the level, right? So you want to raise the level of vocabulary and the way you use your words. Of course, if you move towards adverbs, such as alternatively, and one of these days I'll talk about adverbs more, because we rarely use adverbs in sentences. Adverbs kind of make the structure a little bit more complex. And they're really a little harder to use because when you use an adverb to, for example, modify an adjective or a verb, it's kind of hard to use, but we will look at the adverbs too in just a short while. Okay. Alternatively is one of those things I wanted to talk about. So, on the one hand, on the other hand, part of parallel structures, good, pretty much everyone knows. On the one hand, on the other hand, right? So on the one hand, Anna, on the one hand, on the other hand. Can you give me an example? Oh my God. Oh my God, on the one hand, it was my first day in the class.
On the other hand, I wanted to stay because it's
On the one hand, I hated the class. On the other hand, I had no other alternative, and I had to stay because. Yeah.
Because
because it's better for me.
Yeah, because it was. I felt like maybe it was better. So, Tui, on the one hand, on the other hand, one thing to remember is if you say on the one hand, can I say on the one hand something and then go on without on the other hand?
no.
So if I say on the one hand, I always need on the other hand. So say on the one hand, it's cheaper. So I believe Tokyo is cheaper. It's better for living than where. On the one hand, it's more crowded, it's noisier, more polluted. On the other hand, it's more expensive. Yeah? So if I say on the one hand, I definitely need on the other hand. But if I don't say this, can I say on the other hand without on the one hand?
Yes.
Yes. I can say Canada is very cold. On the other hand, the people are very unfriendly. So I don't have to say on the one hand to say on the other hand. But if I say on the one hand, I need to say on the other hand. On the other hand. So remember, I told you these words, signpost. Like you know signpost? What is a signpost? You see a sign that goes like 5 kilometers or 5 miles to whatever. This is like a post. Yeah.
Okay, I know it.
Yeah. On the road, you see a signpost like that and saying, so these words are signposts in your writing. When you write, she yawned, it doesn't mean that the class is boring. She yawned, it means that she didn't sleep well last time.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, yeah, I know. Yeah, but the class cannot be boring.
No.
Just can't. So when you say 5K or whatever from here to anywhere, it's a signpost. These words are signposts in your writing. So when I see you're writing first, next, after that, on the other hand, or alternatively, things like that, what do we call them? For the 101st time, they're called cohesive devices. Because they give your writing, remember cohesion. Remember cohesion?
Yeah.
And we have the other word coherence. Coherence. So coherence was, if I'm writing, I stay on topic from the beginning to the end. I stay on the message. I stay focused. I follow a story. Everything makes sense. The order is logical. That's coherence, right? Very important in writing and speaking, especially for tests. You should be coherent, right? Cohesive, you should be cohesive. Cohesion is when you use these, and you use them well, because they glue your sentences and words together in a nice and seamless manner. So that's why you need them. Nevertheless, I tried so hard. Nevertheless, I failed. Yes. Nevertheless, I tried to see him. Nevertheless, I couldn't see him. I couldn't find him. So nevertheless, and let me give you a couple of examples with nevertheless. Let's go to my favorite long man. So nevertheless, yes. Search. So what you said was true. It was nevertheless a little unkind. A good example. What you said was true. It was nonetheless unkind. So in spite of the fact that you just nonetheless.
Brutally.
So nonetheless, This is a little hard. It's a little hard to use nevertheless and nonetheless. I want you to look for examples online for them. So if you Google, for example, nevertheless, first it gives you a bunch of dictionaries, nevertheless. So when I go for nevertheless, for example, another example. In spite of that, notwithstanding, all the same. Statements which, although literally true, are nevertheless misleading. Remember literally?
Literally.
Statements which literally true. Remember literally? If I say I literally hate you, it means I really, really, really hate you. If it's this car costs literally $1 million, it means really $1 million. So the sentence is, statements which, although literally true, are nevertheless misleading. They're true, but they're nevertheless, in spite of the fact, whatever. So you should just work on this a little bit, because the sentences would be a little bit,
In spite is more positive than despite.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that, I wouldn't disagree, but I wouldn't say that, because basically they are interchangeable. The structure is a little different. In spite of, somebody give me an example with in spite of.
In spite I sleep early yesterday, I didn't.
Look, no. Thank you for the sentence. The concept is right. I would say, despite the fact that, in spite of the fact that, it's a very good thing. So, in spite of the fact that, then you can say it that way. In spite of the fact that I went to bed early last night, I feel sleepy right now. Despite the fact that I went to bed early last night, I feel sleepy right now. But despite, if I want a verb after that, or in spite of,
In spite of
definitely I need
only sleeping.
ing, remember? Despite being the top student, what? Despite knowing my name, she pretended that she didn't know. Yeah? So, let's go in spite of. So, yeah, I'm looking for some really good things fast. So, yeah, despite means even though, notwithstanding. He had difficulty communicating in French she had difficulty communicating in French despite all her years of study. Despite all her years of study, she had difficulty. We lost the game despite the fact that we practiced all week. Despite the fact that we had practiced all week, we still lost the game. Despite not having an umbrella, I walked home in the rain. Very tough sentence though. In spite of means exactly the same thing and is used exactly the same way. She had difficulty communicating in French in spite of her years of study. We lost the game in spite of the fact that we practiced all week. The bottom line, the English terms despite and in spite of are synonyms. Despite might be a tiny bit more formal, but they're used the same. So, look, if you want to make it easier for yourself, use the phrase despite of no. Remember, just one thing that people actually make. One mistake is using despite with of. Despite of no. So despite something, right? In spite of something. Remember. In spite of, despite no of nothing. So despite the fact that he's a teacher, he himself is very lazy. Notwithstanding the fact that, if that's a big one, if you doing. So, notwithstanding the fact that he's a teacher, notwithstanding the fact. But notwithstanding is a big one.
It's one word?
Yes, notwithstanding is one word. Notwithstanding the fact that he's a teacher. And despite the fact that he's a teacher. So remember, despite the fact that I ate a lot, I was still hungry. In spite of the fact that. So you can use it that way. However, though, and although and even though, we've used them. Although I studied hard, I couldn't pass the test, even though. Though is used less in formal writing as although. Though you can do that, you shouldn't. Even though you can do that, you shouldn't. But in conversation, it's used a lot at the end of the sentences. Well, you can go there. It's kind of hard though. It's kind of cold though. It's kind of expensive though. That restaurant is really nice. It's kind of expensive though. The price is too steep though. It's nice, but it's a little cold though. Though, you hear it all the time. This though. And though.
No.
So,
Though.
so,
Though.
so.
Yeah, perfect. So, we're like a few minutes from lunchtime. So we're done with the, of course we've done a lot of this comparison, because in the language, comparison is key. There are two things that are very important. One is compare and contrast. The other one is cause and effect. The reason why and what happens as a consequence. These two are very important. That's why I've done so many videos, like 6 or 7 videos right now, maybe on compare and contrast. Because all the time, if you're writing something, we're comparing two things in essays. Like in real life too, but especially in tests such as IELTS, TOEFL, CAE, you're always asked to compare things, whether in speaking or in writing. So that takes us to a nice place. I hope to finish this, hopefully. Tomorrow we'll definitely finish this part, the useful phrases. As you said, today we had a review, just to refresh the memory, so that we can finish them. Next up, I think a couple of videos.